Guys, welcome to the flow of energy. Oops, sorry, I still have my pencil in my hair. All right, for today, you're going to need this page in your packet. Let me do it so you can see. All right, so you're going to need this page in your packet. So you're going to want this page. So this page that says the flow of energy up here at the top. And then in your cutout packet, you're going to need this page. And you're going to cut it out, and just like decomposers, you're going to glue the middle on and then have all of these flaps. All right, we're going to go through and learn about the flow, how energy flows through an ecosystem, and then at the end we'll fill out that packet. All right, so the flow of energy in an ecosystem. The sun supports most of Earth's ecosystem. Plants create chemical energy from the sun and the nutrients that they get. And this is where the source of energy flows through all of the ecosystems. And, so let me go to my next slide. So here's our trophic pyramid that we learned about last week. And energy will flow through an ecosystem in one direction. So the energy starts with the sun, right? And the sun provides energy for our producers. And producers provide energy for our primary consumers. And then our primary consumers provide energy for the secondary consumers. So the energy is flowing up one direction. Energy is passed from organisms at one trophic level or energy level to organisms in the next trophic level. We have what we call the 10% rule. So the 10% rule says most of the energy at trophic level is used. That means only 10% of the energy is able to be passed on to the next level. So when an organism eats something, when it eats a plant, it uses 90% of the energy that plant provides for itself because it has to feed itself, to grow, to keep itself warm, to reproduce, all sorts of things. And so that's what they call the 10% rule. Energy is measured what they call kilocalories. In an organism, the second level or the next level only has 10% as much energy available to them as the first level. So if we had 100% energy for the producers, right? They take that sun, convert it into energy. The plants are going to use 90% of it for themselves to grow. And then when an organism eats that plant, they're only going to get 10% of the original 100% of energy that plant had. All right. Sorry, let's go back here. So producers are always the first trophic level, right? Herbivores are going to be our second, and then carnivores or omnivores are going to be our next levels on the food pyramid. So here we have what we call a food chain. A food chain is one set of organisms, or a certain set of organisms, I should say, that pass energy from one trophic level to the next. Okay, so here we have some shrimp, like brine shrimp, kind of like in the Great Salt Lake. So here we have brine shrimp, and then here we have a bleak that consumes the brine shrimp. Here we have perch, which can consume a bleak, and so on and so forth. The set of organisms that pass energy from one trophic level to the next is described as a food chain. The consequences of the loss of energy at each trophic level, meaning if we lost a lot of shrimp, then we can't support as many bleak. And if we can't support as many bleak, we can't support, and the consequences flow up the food chain. The osprey, which is here, right? The osprey, the top predator, must have a really large range in which it can hunt, meaning it's important that the osprey doesn't just hunt northern pike, because if something happens to the northern pike, it's going to affect the osprey. But, right, only 10% of energy. So a lot of energy is less. So our top predators usually need a wide range of food that it can consume. So most food chains have 4 or 5 organisms. They don't ever really have more than 5 because of the loss of energy to support it. There's not enough energy to support organisms in a 6th trophic level. The food chains in ocean animals can be a little bit larger than those on the land because ocean conditions are more stable than land, meaning there's less effects occurring to the animals in the ocean than on land. The animals on land are being affected a lot more. So here we have kind of a little energy pyramid, if you will. So here we have 10,000 kilocalories of energy for the freshwater shrimp available in that. Well, out of that 10,000 kilocalories of energy, only 1 kilocalorie of that original 10,000 will make it to the osprey. So you can see how only passing 10%, right? Those at the top, how little they get of that original beginning of the food chain cycle. So most food chains, I'm repeating myself. A more accurate way to depict the passage of energy in an ecosystem is what we call a food web. So hopefully you can look at this and see how a food web is quite different. So a fox, right, doesn't eat just one certain organism, but a fox can eat different organisms. So that a food web shows, right, the fox can eat the bird, it can eat the rat, it can eat the gull, and it can eat the uglet. So there's different organisms or many organisms that an animal or an organism, I should say, can consume. Food webs are interconnected. All organisms depend on 2 global food webs. The base of one is phytoplankton, that's the water food web, and the other is land. So that's coming back to here, right? So this is the land. So there's 2 global food webs. So basically like the land food web and an ocean food web. The bottom for land is producers. The bottom for ocean is what we call phytoplankton. So one way these are connected, right? We have some land animals that will consume fish or phytoplankton. So like, for example, a bear will eat a fish. An eagle can eat fish. So these food webs are also interconnected as well. Well, one thing about the top of a food chain, a lot of times they're bigger. Why are they always bigger than the bottom of the food chain? And why is the bottom food chain usually generally smaller? Well, it's because they have to eat it, right? The shrimp, if the shrimp had to eat the osprey, it couldn't do it. It's way too small. So the top of the food chain need to be bigger animals so they can consume the animal or the organism below them, which is generally big as well. Well, here we kind of have the opposite effect. Here we have a bison, but we have these wolves, which are smaller than the bison. So it's kind of a little bit different than the food chain. But how does the relationship work? So how is a wolf able to consume a bison? Well, wolves hunt in packs. There's many of them. So they can work together in order to get the bison. All right, remember again, a food web shows the interconnected relationships or all the different relationships between organisms, where a food chain just shows us one certain set of organisms and how they are connected. So in your packet, let's switch this. In your packet, turning on here, okay, so we are going to start right the sun, our atmosphere. This is the source of all energy. So if the sun passes its energy to the producers who pass it to the primary, secondary, tertiary, and then, right, our decomposers actually have a role because they can help anywhere in here. But our decomposers return essential nutrients which help our producers on that. So here, what I want you to write underneath each flap is how that benefits, or how it transports the flow of energy through an ecosystem. So the sun, provides energy to our producers. The producers provide energy to the consumers, but only 10% of their energy. Our primary consumers provide energy to our secondary consumers. Our secondary consumers provide energy to the tertiary, and our decomposers provide energy for our producers, the essential nutrients that they need. All right, if we want 1 kilocalorie to feed our tertiary consumer, how many producers would we need? So remember, 10% is going to be passed on. So 1 here times 10 will be 10, times 10 here is 100, times 10 here is 1,000. So we need 1,000 kilocalories in plants in order to give 1 kilocalorie to our tertiary consumer. All right, tomorrow we are going to learn about abiotic and biotic factors. You're going to read it in your packet. So I'm going to kind of give you, a quick overview. So you're going to cut out this paper that is in your cutout packet and glue it on here. And then you're going to read this passage to answer all of these questions. So all of the answers here are in this passage. And also this one where it says give an example of an organism that has adapted to the abiotic factors of the ecosystem, you're going to have to research that. So go look on Google and give me an example there. All right. So again, this is for tomorrow's, a little preview of that. We'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful day. Adios.